Hello and welcome to another episode of Prodigy Search Presents. I'm Mark Rush Jr., partner at Prodigy Search. Today is my absolute pleasure to welcome a great industry friend, Derek Schuster. Derek, thank you so much for being here today and for joining us.
Thanks, Mark, for having me. Looking forward to it.
So Derek's a longtime ticketing executive, having worked at the Pittsburgh Pirates, Comcast Spectacor, and the Philadelphia Phillies, where he is right now. Derek, let's jump right in. You've worked at two of the best ballparks in Major League Baseball, in my opinion. I'm sure others will, have a top five list. But what makes PNC Park and Citizens Bank Park, obviously, which is my number one, so special?
Yeah, I mean, I have been fortunate, and I agree with you. Both parks are legendary. Guess PNC Park, let's talk about that one first. I mean, just the skyline view when you're in the ballpark is amazing. I think it's the best view in baseball. Probably a close second would be San Francisco. But, where the location of that ballpark is, the views, the attention to detail, the experience of being able to walk over the Clemente Bridge and come to that game, just the experience is top notch. So PNC Park is my second favorite ballpark, only to Citizens Bank Park, which is number one, of course. But, Citizens Bank Park, I mean, you're a local, you've been here, a ton of times. I'm, of course, biased towards it, but, coming a little bit later in the new ballpark wave, Citizens Bank Park opened in 2004. We were able to take elements of a lot of the parks that came before us and kind of, captured a lot of that into our park. So some of the standouts for Citizens Bank Park, our concourse, the 360-degree views, anywhere you are in the ballpark, you're not going to lose the action, which is great. Coming from Veteran Stadium, that was obviously quite different. And even going back to Three River Stadium, the fans in both cities were so excited for these new ballparks because coming from where we did in Three Rivers and in the Vet, it was like night and day. So anything was going to be an upgrade, but I think both parks really surpassed, people's expectations. But for Citizens Bank Park, the concourses, the sight lines, and really being able to incorporate a lot of that Philadelphia flavor into the ballparks, especially in Ashburn Alley with a lot of our concessions, with, partners like Tony Luke's and Chickies and Pete's, and just having that local flavor, I think really adds to the, experience at Citizens Bank Park.
Do you have other favorites? I'm thinking about whether it be ballparks because of nostalgia or the one that, some of the ones that got this whole thing started, like a Camden Yard. I mean, are there others that are, when you travel either with clients or just for pleasure, you mentioned San Fran by way of example, but are there others that you travel to and you're like, listen, I love it because of X, X, Y, and Z reasons?
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to have gone to a lot of them. I kind of put them in two categories: the newer ballparks and then some of the the relics. New ballpark wise, I love San Diego. I love that ballpark, and I think from when they opened it, I was there. I think they opened the same year we did in 2004, to where they are now, and some of the renovations that they made to that park are phenomenal. And I guess just being in San Diego with the weather always perfect and just it's so walkable to to the ballpark. I love Petco. I love San Francisco's ballpark. Old ballparks, I love Dodger Stadium. I think that's a classic. I love the views of the mountains in the background. I love, obviously, Wrigley and Fenway, too, are up there. But I think San Diego is one of my favorites outside of Citizens Bank Park and PNC.
With Citizens Bank Park, in terms of the challenges and the opportunities with the opening of that park, you mentioned transitioning from the Vet. And right around that time, interestingly enough, I was at the Eagles, and that was, again, similar times that was closing. So therefore, you needed a new, ballpark and a new stadium with the link. But talking about the opening at Citizens Bank Park in terms of what you experienced there, I don't think people, whether they're in the industry and they've never been part of opening a new venue, or people outside the industry that are just baseball fans, don't know what it's like to open up a new ballpark. What were the good and the bad with opening up Citizens Bank Park?
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate. I got to do it twice. Once I had to help close down Three Rivers and open up PNC, and people probably thought it was crazy to kind of do this again, closing down the Vet and opening up Citizens Bank Park. But when I originally joined the Phillies, I was brought on. If anyone is listening has been to the Vet, there was a lack of premium seating at Veteran Stadium, like a lot of the old parks. So I was brought on to really kind of start a premium seating department. So, that was a big, uptaking the relocation of season ticket holders from your old facility to the new facility, both at Three Rivers and at Citizens Bank Park was a major undertaking. Really to have people understand the vision, Everyone is particular with where they want to sit and married to that location. You're dealing with people that have been with you for 25 years and love a certain location. And then to explain to them, one, all the sightlines are going to be great, but, we have a new diamond club behind home plate. So maybe you were behind home plate, you don't want the diamond club, so you're further down the line that you may not be accustomed to. So really having people understand that. We had a preview center at both places when I was in Pittsburgh and then at Citizens Bank Park, which, we tried to really show and capture the vision of what we were going to be doing at Citizens Bank Park. So really, the challenges of getting people relocated, explaining everything that you're doing, introducing premium seating. Because back in 2004, while, there was a model out there from, Camden Yards and some of the other facilities, a lot of people in our market didn't quite grasp what we were going to be doing here. So to try to introduce that vision, explain what we were going to do, explain how great it was going to be, was certainly a challenge. On top of it, we are one of the first venues with our premium seating to really introduce stored value on tickets. So to introduce that, people, didn't really grasp the concept. Well, I have $30, on my tickets. What if I don't use it? What can it be used for? How are I going to track this? So it was really an education for our fans. And really, we were nervous that we were going to open on time. I remember, the day before the On Deck series, when we opened up in 2004, people nailing, still putting nails in walls and hard hats in certain areas. I was like, oh my God, are we really going to be able to open? But it opened. It was fantastic. Our fans loved it. We, really, I think, hit all the right notes with our premium seating. We were sold out in all the areas. Fans loved it. It got a great reception. And, we've kind of taken off from there. But it's definitely a major overhaul to do this.
It's amazing. And the people that grew up going to the vet and it's night and day, right? From the sight lines to the seating to the premium to the food. I mean, you name it, not even close. And listen, the vet, for all its great memories, was a football stadium, and there was a baseball team that played there, right? And it wasn't even a good football stadium, by the way. It wasn't good for either sport, if we're going to be brutally honest. But
had a lot of character, as they say.
Yeah. People remind me about the jail in the basement all the time,
right?
When they're not from here. So 2008 was incredible, and that run in general, right after you opened in 2004, there was a number of years that were just incredible with wild cards and playoff runs, and ultimately World Series title. Talk about that World Series experience in 2008, but also the journey, and not just the journey and the ending, the parade, et cetera. I mean, walk me through that kind of that year, both as an employee and as a fan, just an observer.
Yeah, I mean, it was just so magical. And thinking back on that time, when you're living in it, I don't think you realize how fortunate you are to really understand what's going on. I mean, it was really the perfect circumstance. We opened up the ballpark in 2004. We were starting to get good. A lot of our homegrown players were starting to come up, and you thought something special was going on, but you still weren't sure. We made the playoffs in 2007. We came back, we were 7 down with, in back of the Mets with, I think, 17 games to play or something incredible. We came back, we caught them, we got into the postseason, lightning in a bottle. Unfortunately, we got swept out, but just getting back to the postseason was amazing. We didn't really get to taste it that much because we got swept by the Rockies, but still to get there was awesome. Then we come back in 2008. And, the season was going well, made the postseason, got out of the first round, which was incredible. And then you just started to kind of get that feel. And the Phillies, treated us so well. I was fortunate enough to be able to travel with clients, to entertain clients in LA. I got to see the Matt Stairs home run game, which was unbelievable. We come back, we finish off the Dodgers. We got to travel to Tampa as a front office to the World Series. And it was just, it was unbelievable. Again, I don't think I really got to maybe enjoy it as much as I wish I could have, because you're living in it. You're so busy. You're trying to capitalize on everything. But even, it was just unbelievable. And that whole run, we were in the postseason from 2007 to 2011, 5 division championships, 2 World Series appearances. We got back in 2009, but lost to the Yankees. 257 straight sellouts over that streak. It was a magical time. And I really look back on it and just realize how special it was. And hopefully we can get back again so I could take more of a step back to really maybe enjoy it a little bit more. But as a fan, as an employee, I mean, it was incredible.
What was that? What was Game 5? Game 5 was the rain out game, right? And where it was split between two nights. What was that like from your perspective with ticketing and fans and getting them in and out and back for another night? Quite a unique.
It was nuts, because I wish we would have had mobile ticketing back in 2008, because people, it was pouring rain. People lost their tickets. The tickets got destroyed in the rain. We had to call the game. World Series Game 5 Part 2 started a few days later. I forget, it was just a really bad stretch of weather. So getting fans to come back, understanding who had tickets, who didn't, who threw their tickets away. I mean, it was in the midst of everything else. It was just crazy. And then to have that second game start in the 7th inning, I've never heard a crowd so loud in my life. You had that 3-inning stretch. Jeff Jenkins led it off with that double, and it was just off to the races, and we ended up winning it that night. But yeah, I mean, from a ticketing standpoint, it was certainly a challenge to get people back in, of who had the game before, who came back for that second game. It was definitely a lot going on.
We'll take a shot in the dark that there was a little bit more than capacity at that second half of.
We definitely stretched the limits. I don't know if our operations group was loving that, but we definitely stretched the limits that night.
Well, listen, I know I glossed over the parade piece, and I'm not going to ask you to comment on that, but for outsiders, and I know we're not the only city that has some misery in our sports history, but 2008 and the gap between any of the other 4 sports winning in the early 80s was quite a while. So as you can imagine, the parade was quite the experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was Halloween day. It was like an abnormally,
it was gorgeous,
usually warm day.
Right.
It was incredible. It was like, as you said, it was the first championship in Philadelphia since the Sixers won it in '83. So I guess it's a 25-year gap.
Yeah.
And needless to say, the crowd, in typical Philadelphia fashion, came out. They were energetic. I was fortunate enough to be on one of the floats. Again, the Phillies took such good care of us, and it was an amazing experience.
So curious about the organization in general, the Phillies organization in general. I think in Philadelphia in particular, and perhaps more broadly in baseball circles, I would argue, and some other sports circles that aren't tied to the sport of baseball, people, I know I'm very aware of it. And I think people close to me are very aware of the Phillies culture. And that's an outsider's perspective, though, not necessarily people that live it every day, that have been the organization as long as you have. So from a culture and an environment perspective down there at Broad and Patterson, what's it like for somebody that's been there for more than 18 years? You have one perspective that's very different than mine. You've been promoted throughout the ranks. They've treated you really well from an ownership, from a senior leadership perspective. What's the culture and the environment like? I'm curious about that from your.
Yeah, I mean, the culture is real, and it's 18 years. I'm still the new guy here. I feel like sometimes, because a lot of people have been here, certainly a lot longer than I have, and obviously I haven't researched it, but I would imagine that in baseball especially, the tenure of our employees is probably up there, if not some of the longest tenured employees, but definitely up there. But the culture is unbelievable. I mean, people talk about the Phillies family and the Phillies culture a lot. It started with Bill Giles when he kind of took over the club, and then David Montgomery, really took it to the next level. It also helps to have consistent ownership. I mean, John Middleton and the Buck family are behind that culture. They're a part of that culture, and the Phillies, they care about their employees. I mean, it really is real. Go back to David Montgomery. He recently got into the Hall of Fame this past couple of weeks ago, got the Buck O'Neill Award. But, he's really the catalyst for this, or was the catalyst for this, of, knowing every employee's name, not just employees' names, knowing their spouses' names, knowing their kids' names. It's just, pre-COVID, we have a lunchroom here at Citizens Bank Park. Everyone eats there. You would see David Montgomery eating with, an intern one day, to, executives in Major League Baseball, the other day. Sure. I mean, he walked the walk. He lived that. One of his, sayings was, you have to treat your employees well. If you don't treat your employees well, it's hard to expect them to treat the fans well. And I believe in that 100%. Treating your employees well, respecting your employees, it goes a long way with how you treat your fans. And, you hear it all the time. I mean, anyone that does business with the Phillies, I think they would say, from a company standpoint, I've heard it, The Phillies do the right thing. They treat us well. They're very fair. We have great relationships with our clients, and I think that really starts with the culture here. I'm happy to be a part of it, and just kind of continuing to carry that torch, but evolving at the same time.
How important is that with the nature of baseball, right? And everything you just described, from the ownership to Bill and the other leaders that have been there that you've worked for and under, because of the grind, right? You hear that word associated with baseball more than any other sport. How important do you feel like that plays into it? I mean, people, they know what it's like to work that many games, that many hours, et cetera. I mean, is that part of the equation as well, in your opinion?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the people that work here, and again, it's not just here, a lot of organizations, but they have a passion and a loyalty for the organization. So when you're working 60 plus hour weeks, yeah, I mean, it is a grind, but you know what you're getting into in baseball. But I think it's the passion for the organization and the way the organization treats employees is what, creates that loyalty and that longevity here. And the expectations are high too. I mean, you have to perform. It's not just, they're blindly loyal. But it's that loyalty is rewarded, for people that, definitely are here and they're just treated very well here. And, the Phillies are just a very good organization.
Now, one of the things I like talking with people about culture, and thank you for answering those last two questions. But one of the things I also like talking to people about is leadership. And I'm always intrigued by how people have their own styles and approaches. And that, on your side, over the years, you've hired, you've trained, you've led many sales and service professionals at a few different organizations. And so I'm curious about your leadership style, your leadership approach, or your training style, whatever it may be. But from a leadership success standpoint, everybody's got their own, secret sauce that, there's a million books written about it, but I'm curious about your own approach.
Yeah, I mean, I take a lot of pride in seeing, employees that worked with me, under me, advance in their careers. I really do. I love mentoring them, training them, and get a lot of pride in when they advance in their careers, even not just in sports or outside of sports. Take a lot of pride in that. A couple of things for me. I mean, I think I take a genuine interest in the employees and the staff. I care about them. I try to get to know who they are as people. I have expectations. They're high. I try to lead by example, from a work ethic standpoint, but also just setting clear expectations, understanding what you want, giving honest and direct feedback, not being able to, make unpopular decisions, and just having a vision really of what you expect and what you want going forward. So there are some of the things. I also think, you're putting people in positions to succeed. I think hiring the right people is also critical. If you're not hiring the right people and putting them in positions of success, the results may not be as great. So I think, for me personally, hiring the right way, training the right way, setting clear expectations, and putting people in positions for success.
Yeah. And it's interesting to hear your answer to that, because it can't be one of those three things, right? You can't just hire the right person and not train them, or you can't hire the wrong person and hope you're going to train them up, or again, whatever, professional development, continued learning, and exposure to you as somebody who's a kind of follow me leader, as in, here's what I do, here's how I conduct myself, here's how I carry myself, kind of follow and learn and lead by example type of thing. I mean, it can't be, you can't just pluck one of those things from what you just described about hiring, training, et cetera, that ongoing. I like your description there. And it's tough in the ticketing world, right? I mean, because you're right. There are goals, there are objectives. You have to hold people accountable. It's different than, a lot of other areas where there's not, or there's slightly less metrics and numbers and data. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's that. I mean, you could. I really feel like you could train. If someone comes in with the ability, you can train certain things. You can teach certain things. But trying to find, that person with character, that extra drive, that sometimes it's hard to manage character. It's hard to manage that. Either people have that, sometimes they don't. As a manager, you could try to bring that out and get the best of them, but really trying to hire the right people. Again, they put them in position for success is really the key.
So you mentioned a couple of different things. When you talk about your time with the Phillies, you mentioned evolving and evolution. But at the beginning of our discussion today, we talked about Citizens Bank when it opened up. When Citizens Bank Park opened up, we talked about the idea of loaded tickets, or whatever the phrasing is nowadays. I'm sure that's even evolved, right? But in the ticketing space and premium as well. So ticketing, so seasons, groups, premium, whatever, it's evolving every day, it seems. And there's a new innovation, new technology every so often, whether you see them at the conference circuit or you're probably getting called by these vendors, et cetera. But where does the ticketing and premium and group industry go from here? pandemic or otherwise, like even if we weren't talking about the pandemic, what's the next version of a loaded ticket with your concession dollars on there? Like where do we go?
Yeah, I mean, clearly mobile ticketing is something that's going to continue to grow, and the pandemic probably sped that up a little bit more. I mean, teams were going to that. I mean, for us particular, we're over 85% right now of mobile scan-ins. I looked at it back in 2019, we were about 55%. So we were getting there, but I mean, that's a huge jump. And again, the pandemic, a lot of that was caused by that. However, it's not going to go backwards. So, for our standpoint, we're at 85% this year. We want to get that over 90% next year, with getting to as close to 100% as possible. Why that's so important? I mean, being able to identify every fan that comes into our facility, comes into the ballpark, is very important. Being able to understand who is in our ballpark, and going forward, really being able to tailor that experience to the right fan at the right time. It's so important to understand that. And we have the ability to do that now. We're going to have the ability to continue to do that even better. So it's really just capturing those data points and kind of putting them into action. That's one thing. I think a couple other things from a sales standpoint, and we're involved in this now, like a lot of teams, texting and how to market, from a text standpoint. I mean, emails, we see the open rates. It's tough to break through the clutter of emails. I just feel like, we've had some success with text messaging, both from a one-on-one, but also more of a mass texting. I think that's important. Just figuring out other ways to communicate, push notifications in the app, developing the ballpark app, which MLB has done a really nice job of and continues to kind of push that ball forward. So there are a couple of things. The other thing is subscription-based products. And, we're involved with that. We have been, a lot of teams have been, we've been involved with it with our ballpark pass of, a very low priced entry point. For example, we're doing one in September now, 12 games for $60. So how can we take that, but get it to the next level of, having a little bit more, changing the price point, pushing that price point a little bit more. So, trying to navigate that, I think, is also, the future.
It's interesting. Everything you just described, and throughout our call, we've talked about the changes and how things have evolved from new ballparks to the technology, communication strategies, as you just described. I think baseball gets that's my number one sport. So I think baseball gets a bad rap when it comes to, being stuck in the past and not evolving, trying new things. And as part of trying new things, this is my segue, right? I don't do this for a living, but as part of trying new things, the Field of Dreams game. What were your thoughts? Did you watch it? What did you think about it? And what's the future hold for a Field of Dreams game again?
I watched it. I absolutely loved it. I was stoked to watch it. I think it was awesome. I mean, MLB and Barbara McHugh, and who's their head of marketing, and that whole group did an unbelievable job. I mean, to me, they killed it. I mean, I can't see what they could have done differently. And again, obviously the game helped with the unbelievable ending. The weather was fantastic. But, you mentioned sometimes MLB does get a rap for, not being maybe as progressive. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know. But the Field of Dreams game was phenomenal. I think they nailed it. They did everything right. I mean, I got so many text messages, emails from people that aren't even necessarily big baseball fans about how awesome that they thought, that was. My mom, who doesn't watch much baseball, thought it was unbelievable. So I thought it was fantastic. They're doing it again next year. It's going to be the Cubs and the Reds. And I hope we can continue it and do other things like that. But I think they've done a phenomenal job with that. The Little League game that we've been involved with, the Phillies played in it a couple of years ago, is awesome. But this is just another thing that I think they killed it. How about you? What do you think? Did you watch it?
It's funny. My son mentioned the Little League one, but listen, I think you were going up against many, and certainly in town, an Eagles first preseason game. Yep. And guess what? Neither I, my son, nor my wife cared about the Eagles. And I love the Eagles, by the way. And hopefully my friends and family that work at the Eagles don't hear me saying that. But Field of Dreams game was what I was watching that night. That was it. And we weren't changing the channel. So
it was unbelievable.
Yeah. I didn't necessarily think about this until you mentioned the Little League game as well. But I think it's out there, so I'm not like letting it out of the bag. But it's been announced. I'm not sure if it's been formalized yet. So to the extent you feel comfortable talking about it or not, but I think a few years from now, there's chatter about the All-Star game coming back to Philly. I don't know the exact date. I think it's maybe 3, 4.
Yeah, it is. It's going to come back in 2026. So it was here in 76. It was here in 96, and it's going to come back in 2026. So we're excited for it. We've had some folks on our team, we're out in Colorado and have been to, some past All-Star games, just scouting it, and clearly things continue to change. And I'm sure a lot more will change in 2026, but yeah, it's coming back here in 26. We can't wait. I think Philadelphia, will be a great venue for it. Our ballpark's going to be phenomenal. We're excited.
Yeah, 96 was interesting. I think the fan fest and the home run derby, the whole thing. It's just such a great weekend of activity leading up. So 2026 is it'll be here before you know it. So
it really will be. You're right.
Well, listen, Derek, this was fun, absolutely enjoyable conversation. I love talking with you today. As a fan of the sport, as a fan of the organization, but also a fan of yours and your career as it's evolved. Obviously, longevity and loyalty to a few different organizations, but also just talking through your career progression and all the success you've had. My absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time and continued success.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you having me. I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
You got it.